Well, good morning and welcome to City Talk. It's a weekly radio program, it's a podcast, it's a TV program. It's the way that here at the City of Waco we communicate with our citizens about the great things that are happening in Waco. Joining me today for our program are two wonderful, hard-working people at Cameron Park Zoo. First of all, we have Chris Van Skyke, who is the director of the Waco's Cameron Park Zoo, and we have Terry Cox, who is the executive director of the Cameron Park Zoological and Botanical Society. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
Wow. Well, we've done this for so many years and we've gotten it right. We are so excited to have you on, and first of all, because there's so many things happening. First of all, this is spring break, and it's typically a really, really, really busy time. But I want to go back a little bit, and I want people to understand the things that you've gone through, like many of our citizens have, through the COVID. We're going to talk just a little bit about that. Then we're going to talk about the winter disaster that we have all experienced and how you handled it. Let's talk a little bit about COVID as far as how has it impacted the zoo for over a year now almost.
Yes, Larry. Well, as you mentioned, we're getting ready for spring break, which starts this Saturday, and rolling back a year. Exactly a year ago, right at the beginning of spring break, we did actually close the zoo when COVID hit, and part of that closure involved re-sanitizing the entire facility and then reopening under the mask order, which was as much to protect our employees and our animals as the guests themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's you don't think about the animals sometimes too, but they are susceptible to and whatever. So, and that was a year ago, and you were closed for how many days were you actually closed?
Larry, we were closed for 76 days, from March until almost the end of May.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't realize is during that closure, we still had animals to feed, facilities to maintain. We weren't able to do any fundraising events to help out with that, nor were we able to sell things in the cafe and the gift shop and some of the things that offset a lot of our expenses. So we were really lucky to have a lot of community support in donating to a COVID emergency relief fund. And that's been very helpful for the zoo over this year. And of course, the city of Waco has been just wonderful in keeping everyone employed throughout that.
Well, so we can make sure everybody understands. We have basically two representatives here. One, we got the city of Waco, which the zoo is a department of the city. Yes. And then, Terry, you're, of course, representing the Zoological Society, which is a nonprofit fundraising kind of effort and helps sustains the operation of it. So we make sure we understand that, because you came from the zoo as a zoo staff person for a while, and that new designation is a great partnership and a great relationship.
It has been a great relationship since before Cameron Park Zoo opened. The society has been the supporting arm of the zoo, so it has been a really wonderful relationship between the city and the society.
Chris, how long have you been here as the director of the zoo?
It's a little over a year,
Okay,
Larry.
so you came about the same time COVID came in.
I did, yeah. It's about, let's see, of November of, would it have been 2019?
So,
I came to the zoo.
Fun fact, which I'm sure you'll love me bringing up, we closed the zoo for the first time in its history on his birthday.
Yes,
just a few months
celebrating,
yeah.
They haven't let me forget that. But we'll hope that will not repeat.
Yes,
we'll be celebrating it this year because we'll be open.
Well, we're hoping now that the things will all change with the governor's changes and the order and the mask and all that stuff, and depending upon what the city and the county all adopt. This is all still a very fluid situation, but we're hoping that spring break this year will be a little bit different. But before we get to spring break, you all were like everybody in Waco. We had 205 terrible days, below freezing temperatures, where it had a grip on Waco, our lives everywhere. Talk about the zoo, because you all did some amazing stories I've heard about your staff staying there, caring for the animals, keeping them. Some of them don't acclimatize to freezing or much less 0 degree temperature.
Larry, I can't say enough great things about our amazing staff. During that storm, they spent the night at the zoo for over a week providing animal care. And in times when we lost heat and power, we had various collections that were herded into public buildings that we had generators running so we could provide heat. And just the level of dedication and amazing animal care is just, it's just amazing.
And I feel like the community stepped forward too, because I saw pictures with a whole lot of butane tanks and stuff too.
Absolutely. We had community partners, contractors, zoo supporters working around the clock with us as well. People brought out generators in the middle of the night to hook up to different barns once we lost power. And we had citizens donating their propane tanks and money. In 24 hours, we received $9,450 worth of donations for us to buy more propane and animal blankets and food for the staff that were living at the zoo away from their families throughout that time. I will say that if you were able to have toured the zoo, if we could have let anyone, it would have been quite the shock to go into the men's room and see all the shorebirds that we had in there, or the tortoises in some of the other bathrooms. So yeah, we had a lot of animals in very odd places.
You made some amazing adjustments and things. What would you say was probably been the most challenging as far as the type of animal or whatever species or anything else that really, either size-wise or whatever, getting in and just making it happen?
I think the birds were the most challenging. They don't like to be cooped up in they're from that large free flight aviary, so that was a challenge. And then I think probably Chris would agree that our biggest challenge was the aftermath in repairing.
So let's get to that in a minute, because I want to make sure we talk about your brand new baby that was born not too many weeks before the whole freezing thing hit. Zeke, right?
Zeke.
Talk to us about Zeke, how Zeke is doing, and how did Zeke handle the cold?
Well, if I could add to what Terry said, with right before Zeke's birth, just a huge thank you to General Services and Facilities, because we had to replace the in-floor heating system in the entire barn, and that was a huge concern with that birth, with his arrival, making sure that we had adequate heat in the building. And they were able to come in and get that taken care of for us, and that was pretty instrumental during this last storm we had in keeping him comfortable with a radiant floor. Mm-hmm. Heat throughout his entire barn.
And when the power went off, it was very scary for us, because the heat drops very quickly in there without radiant heat running, because the barn is so tall, obviously. And so we did have local contractors bring out huge generators and hardwire them into the barn to keep all that heating system running. And that was it was in the middle of the night. We were just very thrilled with the community support and having, and also the facilities and other city departments that have spent so much time at the zoo.
Not that you need it, but that is such a validation of the love our citizens have for your zoo. When they're thinking not only of their own selves and making it difficult to drive through the city to get to buy groceries or do anything else, they're coming taking care of the zoo and the animals that they love. And
exactly.
To me, that's a testimony. And I know you get accolades and thank yous and everything, great zoo and all this kind of stuff. But when it gets down to gritty-ditty type stuff, we got to take these animals and take care of them. That's just, to me, a great tribute.
It is.
Yeah, sure.
And Zeke is growing. Zeke was born at 6 foot, 138 pounds, mm-hmm. and he's gained. How much, Terry?
A couple of days ago, they told me he was at 110 pounds and about 6'6" now. So I would gather that probably by today he's already at 220. So wow. 210.
Out on exhibit?
Yeah, almost double his size.
He's out on exhibit. And he was named Zeke, and that was kind of a contest, too, wasn't it?
It was. We traditionally will have a naming contest and let the public vote. And then we give those funds to a conservation organization, an in situ conservation. So this one went to International Giraffe Foundation. Gotcha. And Zeke was the winner, and it fits him, I think, very well. I think that was both of our choice originally, so we were happy to see Zeke.
Now, one of the other things that we haven't mentioned yet is, many of you all out there had water leaks, and you had problems at the zoo that caused you to shut down again,
yes.
Even when the warm weather, the week after we had 70-degree weather. Yes. It was spring all of a sudden. But you had major problems. Talk us and kind of describe what all was going on. We've heard reports of what's going on.
Sure, Larry, sure. We had a multiple water leaks in a majority of our restrooms, and and also including the water fountains. We had just installed, our grounds department had just installed brand new water fountains, the sustainable water fountains where you can refill the bottles, and those all froze internally because of the low temperatures and broke. And in addition to the breaks inside the walls in the restrooms and attached to the water fountains, we also had a water main that was about 9 foot down, large main that busted over in front of the coyote exhibit, and that had to be dug out to provide water for the back half of the zoo. So it was quite extensive, and actually as we were leaving the zoo, they were just putting the final coat of paint on the last wall from the wall they had to tear out to replace the breaks, because as they were fixing lines, they would turn the water back on and they'd find another break, and it continued to do that.
It affected almost every public restroom. Our largest generator that's on the roof of our Brazos River exhibit that basically keeps the life support going for our marine fish and all of the fish in that building. The natural gas gelled in the lines. It was so cold.
Wow.
So, and then our diesel gelled or froze in our Bobcat.
Unprecedented
excavator.
Challenges, and you all rose to the occasion, as well as the community coming forward. That's what I get so thrilled about it. I'm going to start tearing up in a minute, because it's a passionate that you guys have, and we all do, that love the zoo, and it's such a great thing. So, but the good news is you're open now, and a fresh coat of paint, you're saying, on a few things, and ready for the coming weeks. So spring break now, is this time for a big recovery, right?
It is, yes. We are open as of this last Sunday and looking forward to spring break and greeting people as they're coming in to enjoy the zoo.
Absolutely. So it's a big time of the year. You all have that's kind of your busiest times of year, within a focused 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Now this year, spring break is still going to be 2 weeks, but I've heard that a lot of schools are kind of consolidating to the same week, so it may not be quite the even break. It may be real heavy this year on one break and the next one. Is that correct, or have you heard?
We typically get the week that it is Waco's week primarily. We have a busy week, but we get our busiest week the week that the rest of like Houston and some of the larger cities. But there's so much to do in Waco, so we've really become a destination. So that typically becomes our busiest week. We hope we have a tremendously busy 2 weeks, right?
Yes, we do.
Well, exactly. Well, and with the weather, and hopefully if the relaxing of the some of the COVID things and the vaccines and all that whole thing can get pushed kind of aside, and the whole tourism and the whole attractions that you're talking about at Destination City becomes alive again for Waco, because I think we all need that.
We do have a lot of extra precautions and amenities for our guests so that they can stay safe. We have additional sheriff's deputies that will be helping people safely cross 4th and 5th Street from our remote parking lots into the zoo. I think we have additional security throughout the zoo, hand washing stations. You might talk about the new strollers. I think people are going to love that.
We've got brand new strollers, which we're pretty excited about. They've got a nice shade structure, and there's a single and a double. That's something that our guests have been asking for, was a nice little shade cover over the strollers. We've got all kinds of brand new merchandise stocked in the gift shop. We're going to have both our cafe and our Treetops restaurant open and ready to sell.
Hand sanitizing stations throughout the zoo. We will continue with our COVID restrictions as they are now, with our sanitation schedule, our mask, and all of the things that keep us and our animals and our guests healthy and safe.
If you just joined us, we're visiting with Chris Van Skyke, who is the director of Waco's Cameron Park Zoo, and Terry Cox, who is the executive director of the Cameron Park Zoological and Botanical Society. And we're talking all about Waco's Cameron Park Zoo and looking forward to it. Now, has the remote parking, there was a time we were talking about having it paved or construction. Is that any different or not?
We're close.
Close.
Yes, the parking lot should start construction after spring break. We're hearing April, and that will add approximately 60 to 75 spots of paved parking and also school bus parking, as well as new sidewalks and ADA compliant crossings. So we're very excited about that.
We are very excited about that.
Well, you've needed that for a long time, and that way you can stripe it and you can organize the
Yes.
parking, whereas before it's just kind of been first come, first serve and chaotic and whatever at the best. So it's not really that good. So, but now for spring break, are you planning on a remote parking situation or bus service like you've done before?
We are not doing bus service this year because of the limitations on buses right now. So we didn't feel like it would be cost effective in moving people. Well, of course, the city bus will stop at the zoo. All you have to do is ask them if you get on downtown on that route. They will stop. We do have remote parking across 5th Street near Earl Harrison House, and so we do have deputies that will help, sheriff's deputies that will help people across, and so that's a safe crossing. We have a lot of things going on at spring break. Every single day, guests will be able to enjoy the scavenger hunt. We've been doing scavenger hunts quite a bit at the zoo on weekends. It's a app that you can download, and then it's an interactive scavenger hunt. They have different themes as you go through the zoo, and you can win. You can play with your family and win prizes at the end. So it's a great way to stay socially distanced but participate in something too. So we're excited about that. We're excited about Saturday the 13th will be our official Meet Zeke Day. And so we'll have some keepers out interacting with our guests, telling them about what it's like to raise a baby giraffe. And we also have had ongoing right now, a Giraffe Art Competition. There's still time to enter that and send in your art of a baby giraffe. And we'll display that artwork on Meet Zeke Day on the 13th. And we'll have other special activities, keeper chats, and a lot of good enrichment in our animal exhibits throughout the weeks of spring break and then moving forward into the spring.
I know you all have always done such a great job of just doing educational projects and in the school some, and I'm sure that some of that's changed or whatever else, but you always have your keeper talks and some of the other things that there's always something happening. And I know it impacted you and some of the other things, between, like in the Zubu and all that kind of stuff was probably changed this year back in October. It's going to be gone through that whole year with the COVID and everything. And so hoping that you're going to be able to get back to it and do there. But, when you mentioned the giraffes and things like that, how do you feel like the impact of the sculptured zoo project along the river? Because each of those sculptures are examples of what's actually at the zoo.
Right.
And it's kind of lead in and just teasing you to get right up there, and that's just beautiful.
I can tell you, I love it. I think it's so fun to watch. As I'm going through the zoo on a Saturday, I'll see families, and then when I'm leaving the zoo, maybe for lunch or for the afternoon, those same families are out admiring the sculptures and playing in the park. It's just added a whole nother dimension to the zoo, I think.
Wow, yeah. I mean, it's what an entrance statement to be able to drive down U Parks and see. I think my favorite sculpture changes every week. That's the path I take in purposely, and every week I'll see something new and I'll change my mind on which one's my favorite because they're all just.
They really are. And I go home that way every day, and intentionally to be able to watch the people.
Yeah.
And it's first of all thrilling to see that the river walk is being used so well, and people are experiencing the outdoors because we've all been cooped up with COVID and all these other kind of things so much, and now spring here. But my favorite one, I'm just going to have to say, is Big Elephant sitting on the bench, because that one is the one I see making. It's the photo op for more people. But anyway, it's so unique just to think that he's just sitting there on a bench, and he's big, and to be able to see that. But then all the rest of them down in the Pecan Bottom area and everything. Yeah. A great advertising and entrance to your lower level on the Pecan Bottom side to get into the zoo. So
it's really a nice addition to Waco and a lead in to our zoo for sure.
Absolutely. Well, you use volunteers quite a bit. I always like to talk about volunteers on these programs because you can't operate a zoo without, first of all, your Zoological Botanical Society, the funding and all this kind of stuff. But then there's the volunteers that you count on because you can't staff everything.
We do appreciate our volunteers. We have had some volunteer. We do have volunteer sign-ups, and we've been doing virtual intern interviews right now. We're placing interns that are college students for our different animal care departments, as well as marketing and some of the other education, some of the other areas of the zoo. Most of the interviews have been virtual, or all of them on that, and we've been able to do some virtual volunteer training as well. So we have some volunteers ready to go. We will still be doing our teen volunteer program, Zoo Crew. I believe that the deadline for applications on that is April 19th. I may be wrong. It's on our website. And that is a wonderful program for 14 to 17-year-olds to introduce them to volunteerism. It's not an easy program to get into. You have to write an essay saying why you want to be in it. You have to have references. You get interviewed just as you would to go to college. And so it really prepares students for a lot of life's lessons. And then they get the joy of getting to work at the zoo with the animals and the education programs that we offer. So it's a really good program for teens, and I encourage youth in Waco to look at that. They can check out our education tab on our website for that.
It's a great experience for them, and they get to see the behind-the-scenes inner workings of the zoo. And it's such an assistance for us to help us as well.
And as they move up in the program, they get more responsibilities, and eventually those that have been in the program for a couple of years and have amassed some many volunteer hours, they can shadow a zookeeper and really help with some of the other more advanced aspects of working at the zoo.
Now, a year or so ago, before you got here, I guess it was, the zoo attendance, my mind tells me, was somewhere around 340,000 or something like that. I mean, one of the biggest attractions next to you know what, but people are drawn to the zoo more and more because of the great amenities and the attraction and the exhibits and everything you have.
Yes.
This year obviously has suffered because of that. But do you have any kind of estimate, or have you heard from any school groups or whatever that are planning for spring break trips or after? I know you have a lot of after school typically.
Spring break doesn't usually have as many school groups, but after spring break is when those really pick up a lot. We were just talking about what to estimate.
Yes.
So I'll let you take that one.
Boy, roll the dice. I will say, Larry, that through the fall, I would say starting September, October, November, December, or at least through mid-December, we were seeing higher attendance per month than the previous year. I think a lot of people really appreciated all of the outdoor space that we have to offer, that you could get out and socially distance, and we saw an increase at that time. So,
and I also heard, I'm going to interrupt you because I also heard how well you all are handling COVID and making it a safe environment, abiding by all the rules of the governor and the county and the city and everybody else. So that's a tribute to you. I want to make sure we notice that, because when people feel safe, when they're in a questionable environment, healthy environment, as it is COVID, that's a compliment. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's,
Well, no, thank you. And I would add that we've taken this whole process very seriously. And lots of sanitation and cleaning and replacing of railings and anything that we could do to make things more sanitized and safer.
And that will continue. We are well aware that public safety is one of our number one values, and we will continue to keep it as safe and disinfected and socially distanced as possible.
And it's an opportunity for us to educate our public and let them know that there are animals that can get COVID, and we want to maintain those barriers for those species as well, and we have some of those, so that's important.
And we mentioned Zeke is the premier baby But I know babies are born all the time at the zoo. Is there any other babies that we should have or could mention or whatever else, or just let people know that every time I've ever gone to the zoo, and I've been to the zoo since it opened, and it's always different. I always see something new or something I thought it's different. And so what other new babies can maybe people look for when they come out?
DJ, our little kudu, is
Yes.
playing in the yard with Zeke.
Baby kudu, you said?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And we have an adorable baby alligator
Yes.
right now in the Brazos River Country Aquarium, freshwater aquarium building. And
I would include Mowgli,
Mowgli,
our bear.
and we have the
And-
2 new mountain lions that are young. They're Tawakoni has a wonderful story. They both really had good
Dakota,
rescue
yes,
story.
yes.
Dakota and Tawakoni,
Yeah.
right? Tawakoni.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're in the yard together now. I think they've got them introduced, and so we have a lot of younger animals. And who knows?
Yeah.
It's spring. Spring is baby season sometimes.
Well, I know you always are expanding and looking to expand, and because you do have had some property to be able to expand. Talk about the expansion project. I know that's kind of been pushed back because of COVID and some of the other things and funding and whatever else. Kind of where are we on that? Because I know there was some decisions made to move forward with the project. And where are we?
Sure. Yes, we have the county bond that was passed is going to allow us to build 3 new projects, which is going to be the Hoofstock Barn, which will be a replacement barn adjacent to the Giraffe building where Zeke is located, and then also a new education and veterinary complex, which will be located at the front of the zoo, next to the parking lot, in between, I would say, the parking lot and 4th Street. There's a triangle of space. And then the third project will be the penguin exhibit, which will be in the back, located near, I would say, in between Treetops and the Herpetarium.
Mm-hmm.
So those 3 bond projects we continued to work on all through COVID. We switched more to a virtual format, and we're in various stages with each one of those, with the Hoofstock, with the Education Veterinary Complex, and with the Penguin project. So
We lost maybe a few months because of COVID. There are some things that took higher priorities in dealing with the pandemic.
yes,
But I think we're back on track. And one thing I can say is, I've been through every one of these projects, building projects at the zoo. Chris and Johnny and I and Derek Altman and the people in purchasing, and we've all formed a really good team.
Yes.
I think we communicate really well with each other, and what's really exciting is the vision is very much the same, I think. And so that's very exciting when you're working on a project to everyone kind of have the same idea in mind, and good communication skills.
A good team effort
Yes.
overall.
I
It
think-
really is.
I think it's going to be a good project.
Well, that's so exciting, so exciting. Chris Van Skyke, who is the director of Waco's Cameron Park Zoo, and Terry Cox, who is the executive director of the Cameron Park Zoological and Botanical Society, have been our guests, and we're talking about spring break now, going to happen this week and the next week both. What are the hours of the zoo?
9 to 5 every day except Sunday. Sunday is 11 to 5. During spring break, last admission is 4 o'clock because we do have such large crowds to move through, and it's a bigger zoo now. You can't get through there in less than an hour. So,
Well, like I've said before, if you've been there before, you still need to go again, and if you've been there 20 times, go to the 21st or 22nd. And one of the best deals is they still have the family and the grandparent memberships.
Yeah.
Best thing I ever did. Gets you in and out of the door, one flat deal. So anyway.
well,
And-
thank you for
and-
your membership.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
money from each membership sold goes to our NC2 conservation projects, and so that's always good that you're doing good for the animals when you purchase a membership.
First of all, I want to thank you all for taking off from the daytime to come in here and do this. And more so, I want to tell you how we as a family of the community of City appreciate what you do to take care of the animals that we all love. And thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
And we want to thank you all for joining us and hope you'll join us again next week for more information here about the City of Waco on City Talk. This program is produced by the Municipal Information Department of the City of Waco and is provided as a public service by this station.